Hey, well, welcome back. It's time to turn on dark mode. We're here to talk about working in IT, video games, tech, and everything outside the 9 to 5. I'm one of your hosts, Keegan and Taylor.
And I'm Taylor Floyd Muse. How's it going?
Hey, it's another day.
Another day, another
We're
dollar.
just we're in this quarantine, another day. Not a quarantine, but I ain't leaving my house much.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty much the same thing it was 5 months ago. So,
Yeah, like March, the blink, and then it's August. So be in here.
well, I saw some article today. It was like, uh, Wuhan, where like it first started the coronavirus. Like they're like back to normal. Like I saw, like it was a picture of like thousands of people at this water park, and I was just like, huh. And then like when I looked at their like the stats, it was like, yeah, they haven't seen any cases in like months or weeks or something. Like it's been a while. And I was like, "Oh, okay, so they're just done. Cool. Back to normal."
I mean, I hope I hope we can get to that point. That'd be great.
I mean, theirs started like last fall, so like by now. So I mean, ours started in like early, February-ish. So like maybe by the end of the year, maybe the holidays will be saved. But
I
I
don't
don't
know
know about with the
because
way we're handling it.
Yeah, when we had to go to Illinois for a wedding, and like on the way there, you'll stop in like we're like in the middle of Missouri,
Mhm.
like real middle of Missouri, and go to a gas station. There's not a single mask, and we're the only ones wearing one. We're like, wow, like it feels like culture shock, and it's just so wild that like in a few months that's we've like managed to make it like part of our society. Like you just wear a mask, but
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking that too. Like when things go back to normal, I'm gonna feel like apprehensive in groups still. Even though like let's say like a vaccine comes or we work its way out, like whichever way we're back to normal or some new normal. Like I'm basically just gonna be like, yeah, I don't want to be here in a giant group. Like I'm gonna feel nervous. Or like walking into a grocery store and you're not gonna be like, oh, I forgot my mask. It's gonna be like, there it is. We're good.
yeah,
I can do this again.
I could breathe this air.
Your glasses won't get fogged up anymore.
I don't know. I got a mask that doesn't do that to my glasses at all. It has like a nice tight like rim around the nose. I have zero issues with it.
That's nice. My
Maybe.
mask doesn't do that. So like uh when I put a mask on, like I just go put my contacts in.
Yeah, my mother in law got me the ones that have like you can take out the filter and then put them in, so that way it's like reusable.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
don't have
they're
one of
pretty
those
nice.
ones. I just
We're a
keep
little we're a little bougie over
the
here in
basic
Kansas City.
medical like not reusable, the disposable masks. But
Yeah,
I don't know, mask life, you know how it is.
I'll just stay indoors and work from home and play video games. That's the goal.
Fair enough.
That's my life. Drink some White Claws.
Well, hopefully you're not playing mobile Fortnite because that shit got yanked from the App Store.
Yay.
And I'm
Before
not
we even get
even.
into this, let me just say I forgot mobile Fortnite was a thing. I genuinely forgot that they even made it a mobile app game.
Yeah, I mean, I did too. Like, I would never play it, but like the whole underlying motives behind this whole ordeal is kind of crazy. Like, I mean, first of all, Epic Games, they just came out and circumvented the App Store like terms and conditions by allowing their users to buy their proprietary V-Bucks through like or not through the in-app purchases of Apple. Like you could just buy it straight in app. And then they were like circumventing the 30% what do you call it, tax basically that Apple has to take from all in-app purchases. And like immediately it got removed, which was like no surprise. But then like they were prepared for that, I guess. They were just like expecting it. So they like immediately rushed to release this like ad campaign that mocked like Apple's 1984 ad from when they were trying to take down IBM as a monopoly. And it like Gibbs will pull it up here, but it's just like it's kind of funny.
It, but I mean, it's no surprise. Like we've talked about on this podcast how their app store it's really greedy. It's very strict. It's very hard if you want any sort of purchasing to going on
Mhm.
to have an app on the App Store. Now, yeah, you're right that they did this full well, like, they hit a button, they're like, "We're going to war." Like, they
Yeah.
didn't just they weren't, like, surprised. Like, they
Like,
don't
this
just
came
have
up, like, 1
it
hour after
yeah,
it got removed, like, they
they
had it ready.
they were ready. And it's my problem with Epic is, like, it's not a matter of I don't have a problem with what their mission is. It's just the way they go about it just makes me cringe sometimes, like, the way they took on the Steam store, it's like, "Okay, I can see where you're coming from, but at the same time, I like Steam." Like, I like, it's at the same time, what gets clouded what I think gets clouded with Epic Games, I think that they genuinely do really good things for developers and for the gamers alike.
Mhm.
My only problem is that people will focus on how much money they make. They'll think about the money and they'll think about how successful Fortnite is rather than what they're trying to actually achieve. It's not really about their in-game app purchase. They probably could have gone on life without it. They chose to do this to spark a fight with Apple.
Yeah.
And because it was successful, the game is still successful without it. Like they didn't have to do it. My problem with what happened is they're gonna win this. They're gonna get like some sort of settlement because Apple's not gonna go to take this to full lawsuit because if if I'm understanding correctly, with it being purchased outside of the App Store, right,
Mhm.
and it being purchased through their Epic site rather than within the app, that's my understanding from the article, right?
Yeah. Well, like, it wasn't I don't know if it went through their site, it just, like, it bypassed Apple's App Store.
Oh, okay.
Like, it
So
allowed them
then
to do it from Epic Games in the app.
okay, then okay, they are at fault. So they are breaking the policy because that's I was gonna say that if they did it the right way, which is where you can buy the whatever currency or whatever in-game purchase on your website,
Mhm.
and then it transfers to your app, you loophole the app store. A lot of companies do that. I was working for a company that we had to do that with our app because I mean, their process and policies and like the amount of hoops you have to jump through to get your app on the app store is incredible. And then they basically utilize that. They say it's for security, which part of that is true, but at the same time,
To protect the consumer or some bullshit.
it probably started out that way, but what they utilize this process is to see where they can make profit out of it because a lot of like companies like let's say Amazon Prime, for example. I've used this example before on App Store because it's just Prime.
Mhm.
But so with their purchasing of renting, buying, or anything like that for movies, right? Video on demand. You can't do that within their app on an iPhone because it competes with the App Store. It competes with their iTunes. It competes with any sort of, and they don't want to give any percentage of that. So what you have to do instead is you on your Amazon account, either via not on your iPhone, but on your computer or your laptop or anything else, buy rent it on there, and then it will show up on your app within the iPhone.
And wait, this is to clarify, this is just for Amazon Prime Video, not, like, through the Amazon app? Because I've definitely rented a video through the Amazon app to, like, show up on my smartphone.
Right, but then that's different than last. Well, see, I've been out of the game so long on the iPhone. That's how it used to work. But at least when we were circumventing our application, that was one loophole: was you had to buy it on the website, and then it would show up within the app on the App Store. Um, if they did work out a deal, I'm sure they had to work out a deal where they get a percentage of that fee or whatever.
Mhm.
And it's just I like I get it that this is a big mission statement that Tim Sweeney's had for a long time to knock this down, but it's just like why now? And is it to put Fortnite back into the news cycle? Because to me, I I don't I wanna trust that it's in a good faith that he wants to genuinely knock down a monopoly and that he's had grief with the App Store, but at the same time, I'm wondering if there's a hint of greed behind there to get more money revenue towards their application, get more people back into Fortnite. I don't know, but it just seems all of a sudden it seems really pre-planned. It seems like really aggressive, and it's not like the App Store hasn't been already in the news. I mean, it people have already been frustrated with it. They've gone to Congress about it. Um, but it's going to be in their news feed for a while. I'll
Yeah,
tell you
no,
that.
it's just kind of weird how like the route that they chose with like getting it banned because then Apple turned around after they like did the public attack and was like they just like publicly announced they're going to revoke their license on August 28th I think or something for developer tools and all that, and they were immediately like uh they're preventing us from using something that's like publicly available like to apply for, and it was other weirdness that way, but like I do kind of see the like the goal here, but the thing that's gonna matter is what they do once they get some sort of a settlement like done, because like you're saying, it might be a little bit of greed, and it's like, well, Apple once upon a time was a smaller company that was like going after the larger company, and now they're the monopoly. So it's like very easy for Epic to do the same thing. We're like, okay, let's say that they get their Epic store on every platform or whatever, and they start doing these stupid deals that they have been doing like to get people off Steam, and they start doing that on other devices. Like they're gonna have the monopoly, and it's like the only way that this can like end well is if they get the monopoly, taken down, and then they stay neutral with like, all right, hey, we still have the option for Epic Games on here, and you can buy outside of the App Store or Steam or whatever like product they're on, because they seem to like this isn't the first thing they've done. I don't think it's just a personal attack on Apple, because also Google takes 30% and they removed them from the App Store as well, or the Play Store. So it's like Apple's getting the forefront of it because they're notorious for having the strict policies, and like it is a pain in the ass to develop for iOS because of all their policies and like things that you and regulations you have to follow. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see like what sort of settlement they agree on, because I don't think Steam ever budged from their amount of money they cut from games. So like, I mean, with Apple being even more stubborn, like who knows what's going to happen there? Maybe they're just like, you're done. Like I don't know. Like Fortnite won't be freed as Tim Sweeney wants. Like it's just going to be a shot in the foot.
Y- Yeah, and yeah, Google. I mean, Google's getting hit as well. I mean, it to me, I see the good fight, but the thing that I want to address, and it's not that I'm glad that they're doing it. Like ultimately, my takeaway is good. Power to them. Take down Apple. Great. Like I've always been saying that. Like I don't I don't really like what Apple's doing with their Play Store, or not the Play Store, with their App Store.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, it is my prediction, and my prediction is that developers and the game industry will back up a game store and be like, "Hey, they're fighting our fight. God damn, it's about time." They really stand with the developers. Then they're going to get a monopoly on the developers. I mean, we can use that term loosely, but they're going to have an advantage where developers are going to want to use Epic Game Store, right?
Hmm.
So then Epic Game Store is going to have a credibility. Now you have to look at Apple. Apple toppled, like you said, but leadership is what changes over time. So let's say Tim Sweeney's no longer at Epic Game Store. Somebody steps in his foot, says, "Hey, I'm going to fight the good fight. I'm going to keep it going." All these developers are working for Epic Game Store, and then he's like sees the advantage of having all the developers, and then maybe puts it up 1%. We take 1% more this year just because we have so many developers. We have to maintain everything, guys, and if we really want to keep a crisp security about our how we're doing things.
Yeah.
And then next year, well, I mean, we gained so much more. Like we're bigger now. We have the 2% more. It can easily get to that point, and my hope is that they keep on the good fight. Like I don't want to bash it. I don't want to bash on Epic, even though that's normally my take. is to bash Epic Game Store, but
Oh, I mean, it's just funny because these are 2 companies that we don't necessarily like, "Oh, they're great." Like, we
yeah,
have problems with both of them. And, like, I don't know. I mean, Apple's had some issues in the past, and, like, I've always been like, I like the way that Apple's App Store, like, or their apps are well polished. Like, I'm all
that was the next thing I
I
was gonna go into.
I always say that, and this is in part from the fact that they enforce these regulations, like, with the standard of things. Maybe not so much, like, the fact that they take a 30% cut from in-app purchases, like, that doesn't affect the app integrity, like, that's just their cut, that's their tax.
I
But
think it's hidden within there. Yeah.
what I find is interesting is, like, let's take a look at their other platform, Mac OS. There's an app store there, but you can still get tons of applications just downloaded from the internet. You can't do that on iPhone. Like, there is no way to sideload apps without jailbreaking. So, like, you can do, like, little profiles and stuff like that, but I'm pretty sure those also have to be vetted. So it's like, it is a little bit interesting that they're like, "Okay, we're doing this for the protection of the consumer and the security," which I can see to some extent, but it's like, "Okay, why doesn't that span to all of your applications then, or all your platforms?" And then, like, why can't we side load things on iPhone? For instance, like, if I get the better security from the App Store and I'm conscious of that, I'll stick to that. But okay, this app's over here and I know the company, they're well credible. Like, let's get their app on, but I have to sideload it or use a different store. Like, I'm going to do that still. Like, I feel like you should have the freedom to be able to do that. And you can do all that kind of thing on Android. You can sideload apps, you can download things from the internet. But it's very interesting how Apple has made the determination that iPhone can't do that, but Mac can. And when you look at, like, Mac and iOS devices, they can get different sort of, like, security risks than PC. Like, everybody always had that myth, like, "Oh, Macs don't get viruses." Well, it's like they don't get the same viruses as PCs. So, like, iPhones might get different sort of vulnerabilities than or Androids do. But, like, I know that Androids have a lot more security risks, but, like, they need to find that balance where it's like, okay, if we can do that on our Mac, we should be able to do that on our PC, or excuse me, our iPhone. It's just, I think that would make more sense.
Yeah, and problem is there's such a gray area around this, right? So when you go about toppling like monopolies, like with the internet and how things are downloaded on your phone and how companies can have all these terms of use, it's gonna be a messy legality.
Yeah.
And I was gonna kind of agree with you on the App Store because although it's a double edged sword with their fees and their percentages that they take, their overall mission statement, they actually uphold pretty well because there's not an app on there that probably isn't well supported or at least polished or at least will not screw over your phone. Whereas Google Play Store and like stores like that are like a little bit less like Wild Wild West,
Yeah.
you could download some just straight up bot spamware and be screwed.
Mhm.
Um, but a part of me kind of understands that their percentage take in that if you want to use our service and you want it to be on iPhone, this is the consequence. And that's kind of how Steam is right now, where they haven't budged on their policies because they stand by their product, right? They stand by like we have it in place because this is what it takes. We support what we do. And
Mhm.
I'm wondering if that's going to be kind of Apple's, overall statement is, we have it at 30% because if you want to utilize our huge, net of users, that's what we take. And yeah, it's going to be argued that it's too high for developers and that developers games they don't make enough out of that, which is pretty factual. But at the same time, then you just aren't supported on iOS. Like that's gonna be the argument. Like you didn't follow our legal terms, so therefore we don't allow your product on our platform because you get again they have to remember that like it's their game, but their game doesn't have to be on the phone. Like they're assuming a freedom of being allowed on a end user's phone. So I would love to hear the legality where a lawyer on their team argues that they have a right to be like they have a right to be sold on a phone. Like I don't because I don't know that. I don't know
And that's
behind
what
all
I
the
wanted
terms.
to get into, like, the whole, like, do you have a right to be on it? Because, like, let's say, like, Steam didn't budge, but, like, they can still exist on a Microsoft Windows PC. They can still exist on a Mac, like an Apple MacBook. Like, that's not changed. So that's where it's really weird to me that they are isolating iPhone, just being like, "You're not allowed to sell your product on here anymore." Like, you're not allowed to sell your product here in that fashion, but, like, go ahead and do it on our other stuff. Because, for instance, like, if they get the Epic Store on there, like, this also doesn't just affect Epic. xCloud, Project xCloud isn't allowed on it.
Yep.
And like GeForce Now, that other streaming thing, like, there's a lot of game related things as well. But then, like you said, with Amazon, I think there's restrictions with like Prime Video, maybe that app, but not Amazon. Either way,
Yeah.
it's very weird that they're just gonna shut off that part of the market, which is a lot of people. Like, so many people have iPhone and are gonna want that product. There might be some people that leave them for an Android now because they're not gonna be able to do any sort of streaming stuff, like, at all. Like, it's just kinda strange that they would do this. And, like, I guess, like, apps like Netflix or other like Hulu, you're not buying those things on a per watch basis. You pay externally. So, like, that goes around the rules. Like, that's correct. Like, you can do that. But for them to shut off such a up and coming market as well with the whole streaming and paying for that, like, I really think they need to, like, take a step back and adjust their policy. Like,
Well, hang
it
on
doesn't
now.
make sense.
Hang on now. The thing you're not looking through is on the executive level. Let's look at Stadia and those platforms coming out. Where are the metrics to say those are successful? Where are the metrics that those have a lot of users that want to use it on their platform? I That hasn't been proven yet. So in their mind, are we about to let one company finally put their foot down and to Apple, a massive corporation, if they bend to that, then they're gonna like look at it as a government. They're gonna have a rebellion on their hands, where then all these other developers and all these other like let's say Clash of Clans and who other knows like those other apps, all then say, well, what the hell? Then I want the same thing. We don't deserve this 30%. So then if they do that, think about the massive cut of revenue that they're gonna get. So from an executive level, it's a game of chess, right? So they're looking at these products and they're basically saying that their bottom line is that the risk outweighs the profit that they'll gain if they let these few apps slide and they cause restrictions in their head. If they don't allow it, it'll
Well,
be in
it's
the
not
news store
letting
for.
those apps slide. Like, they're still gonna take a 30% tax. Like, I'm not talking so much about the whole, like, work around the payment. Like, xCloud and all of them need to adhere to the 30%, but, like, they're not allowing them at all. They're just
that's
like,
what
so it's
that's what
not
I'm saying.
about the fact that 30%, like, let them slide thing. It's like, why are you just not gonna allow it on the App Store as a
Because
precaution?
I my theory is that they don't want that they feel that it is not worth bending their policies for these few things that in their minds. Not I'm not doing Fortnite. I'm just talking about the Stadia and the streaming services, right?
Mhm.
So, and a granted disclaimer, I don't work for these companies, so I have I have no idea what went through. But if I was looking at this from a business standpoint, to me, these companies, Stadia's been around for a year or so, and they haven't proven to be successful. They haven't proven to have the users. Now, Microsoft is getting traction, right? And
Mhm.
Microsoft and Apple butt heads already. So there's hype around it, but it's not yet out here. It's not yet successful. It's not yet, they don't have a number of how many users are wanting this on the iPhone. How many users are we going to lose?
I don't think that
So
matters.
it
Like,
does because it's risk.
but that's not what violates the policy. They can't just be like, "We don't want you on the store because we don't know." That's not a violation. That's
They
actually
probably
illegal.
they
So, like,
probably they probably submitted their application to be on the App Store, and they violated some sort of principle. They said what they violated, and they probably aren't gonna fix, like, they're not just not allowing them, they probably are working it together between companies. Like, there's definitely discord going between the companies, that doesn't just happen randomly. So, basically, there's some sort of policy that they're not adhering to, that they decided that they're not gonna fix, so therefore Apple's like, "Well, then we're not gonna let you on the App Store." Now, again, disclaimer, not their present, but I would assume that there's no way that they're just like, yeah, we're not going to allow this possible revenue stream come into our app just because it's a competitor.
well, here, let me read their statement because this, like, I think we're misconstruing here. They are saying that the reason why that they're not allowing these on there is because they have to individually submit games for review. And when you have apps like that that have streaming, you're not submitting each game for review, which is really fucking stupid because they don't submit every movie from Netflix individually for review. They just put the damn app on the store. So, like, why are the games different? It's a digital media source that has, like, a similar rating system that movies have. So, like, this is where
I,
it's kinda like they're literally just scared of losing revenue, and it's like, you're still gonna get you can enforce your 30% tax on these, just what like, I it's very, like, I feel like it's almost being, like, childish.
yeah, maybe they're not wanting to. Maybe their hope is to that there want to be a way to track. Let's say if one of the games that they're streaming through Stadia has in-game purchases, but yet it goes through Stadia, but not through, or whatever company, but not through Apple, but it's on an iPhone. So therefore, it's this big gray area of cloud streaming that just because it's on your phone being presented through a different platform, is it technically bypassing the App Store, or is it not even remotely near the App Store because it's through the cloud? So
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know. It just goes to show that, like, this has just been a huge issue for forever, and now it's just finally it's reached the gaming industry, and the gaming industry is like, Nope, we took down Steam, we can do anything. We took down Valve. Let's we'll
Well,
take you
like
guys
you're
down."
saying, like, gamers are so, like, compassionate about this or not compassionate. They're not compassionate. They're passionate about this. Don't wanna
Yeah,
misspeak there. And, like, if all of a sudden they can't do what they were promised to be able to do on a device that a lot of people have, like, a good chunk of the world has iPhones, it's just that's gonna start some problems. And, I mean, people have been vocal about it on Twitter, but, like, I guess, like, I am kinda glad that we do have one company that I mean, Epic's pretty big now. They're, like, spearheading the fight against them. Now, I don't expect a complete overhaul of Apple's policies. I'm more like, as I'm sitting here explaining, like, I'm just like, "This is what I wish could happen." Because, like, obviously, I don't know the whole legalities, like, I'm not reading the whole entire fine print. That's the lawyer's
yeah.
job. But, like, I'm seeing these snippets of what they're like, citing, like, "Oh, this is why you're not allowed." And I just feel like it's very it's very shallow. Like, and when you look at other different instances of, like, how similar things are pretty much borderline the same thing, it's kinda like what you're saying, the whole gray area. So, if Epic's able to get even something figured out where, like, eventually, like, maybe they lower the 30%, who knows? I doubt that, but I think what in the long run, like, I don't think anytime soon, I think what should happen, it probably won't, is that Apple should be like, okay, they should take a look at how their other platforms allow for exactly what they're stating cannot happen on this one. We need to open up the option to have other people on your platform. Like you said, you can't enforce a right to it, but I just feel like to what extent are they held accountable for that kind of thing? Because obviously every company wants to technically become a monopoly by the end. Like they want to make all the money, but it's kind of like that it's to the detriment of every other consumer product. Like,
Yeah.
everything else falls through, and it's just like you feel like you only have one option. So, I don't know.
And the problem is I kind of want to hear what Apple's statement back is because this feels very stacked. I mean this kind of all kind of kicked off on the 13th.
Mhm.
And not to say that the anger wasn't already there, or not to say that like video game news journalists didn't already have frustrations or passions towards this, but I felt like it came out of the woodwork. Like all of a
Oh,
sudden we're
yeah.
mad at Apple today. Like,
It
oh
was
yeah.
real out of the blue.
And like to me, it's real easy to be like Epic Game Store's in the right, like support the developers. That's great. Cause I do. I want to support the developers. But at the same time, I mean, they didn't really accomplish their Steam goal. Like, yeah, they offered a safe haven for developers to get to to put exclusive games and not have to worry about a steep percentage, but Steam hasn't lowered the percentage at all. Doesn't seem like Steam's gotten really hit that hard from what happened. So hopefully that they keep the mission, they keep towards something, but at the same time, I don't know if it's just my motive is that there's some sort of capitalist way that they're getting their profit, or maybe I'm just like a pessimist and I'm thinking that there's only negative behind their actions. Because to me, if a corporation is doing something, they're doing it for money. But they could be just completely, saints of people that want
They
to
could be.
tear tear this down, and then they don't want a single dime.
I
They
mean,
want
they did, like, say in their statement, like, I mean, again, I don't know who's saying this or how true it is, but they did say, like, they're not in this for the money of, like, the lawsuit or, like, getting the thing. They just, like, they're trying to take down a monopoly, which I don't know. Cool, like, cool that they just decided to randomly do that, like, I don't know.
yeah. So I mean, it definitely hit weird because it's like, yeah, I agree with that, but like also I don't like who I'm agreeing with. Like, wait, hold on. And I'm just like in the middle here, tug of war with like seeing what's
Yeah.
going on. Ultimately, I just want to see what happens because then I can have a clearer image of like, a lot's gonna happen. Like when there is a final say, and when when everything settles, to see if it continues, if their mission statement stays true, then that's awesome. Like super happy about that.
Mhm.
But if it doesn't, and they get a little more greedy, or something happens within their percentages, I'll just be sitting here like not surprised. Like that's
Yeah.
capitalism for you. Like that's why. And the argument that it prevents competing, it's like, well, then you just don't utilize their product. That's the competition. Don't come up with something better. Make a deal with Google Play Store. Like that's kind of the argument that I'm wondering that Apple will go. Like if you don't like it, you don't have to use us. Find a different. There's Google Play Store. There's Android. Like you can figure it out.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like you said, it's gonna be interesting to see how it plays out. Like, I feel like we're gonna see a lot of big articles like about the progress of it going forward, and only time will tell. But yeah, like you said, it's weird to see like which one we're agreeing with. I see the sides of both. Like I understand why Apple was just like, I mean, you violated our policy for the 30% thing because it was like openly overt, and then they're just like, we're taking away your developer license. And it's just like, dang, they went straight for the throat. Like, I was like,
Dude,
all
what
right,
if
fair
like
enough.
well, and then when they did that commercial, I was like, okay. Like for a brief second, I was like, wow, that's like genuinely cool and like, yeah, go power to him. But then I saw the commercial like within an hour. I'm like, that was planned. That was a real. That was a real. We're going to war. Crack the knuckles. We're going to tear him up. Because like, what if Apple is just like, all right, you're right. We were in the wrong there. And then that commercial's just
And then they just
floating
silently, like,
around.
Homer in the bush, like, go take their ad offline, like, oh, man.
But yeah, they knew they came prepared, which is good. We shouldn't knock them for being prepared, but at the same time, I don't know. There's a lot. There's a lot around that like I don't wanna put my foot in my mouth, you know?
I mean, like, considering like I said, we're not reading all the fine print, and we're talking about legal things without diving deep into the legal terms and conditions because nobody reads them things. Like,
Yeah,
we probably have at one point put our foot in our mouth, but, like, you know what? Like
that's just the show. Keegan making a fun of himself.
oh, man. I'm just saying that, like, people can have their opinion on thing, and, like,
We're just figuring it out.
we
We're
are
just
figuring it out, you
we're
know?
figuring out with you guys.
Thanks for tuning in.
Here, we'll post like the funniest thing is when people are like, "Why Apple sucked?" A thread, and I'm like, "Yeah, we know. Like, this is not new.
Yeah.
like,
Like,
it's
wake
just
up,
because
man.
it's just infecting the game industry. So now there's all new threads.
For sure. So, Baldur's Gate had a little conference today. How'd that go?
Honestly, I mean, overall, good. Does it need to be 2 hours? No.
It was 2 hours?
Something like that. I think so. Like it was at least like over an hour easily.
Yeah.
They a couple weeks back they said that we're gonna confirm down on an early access release date, and basically they were gonna kind of go over some mechanics that they're implementing, have a panel discussion and a Q&A,
Mhm.
which to me was like, okay, that's like pretty light talking points. It's nothing major. Shouldn't be that long. Because I'm thinking through like that's noon during work.
That's
So
lunchtime.
if it's it's lunchtime, and if it goes over, then it's like, where's Keegan? He's AFK. I don't know. so um
Well, you ate at the keyboard, like, ATK,
no.
but no
Oh,
well, if you're watching on your computer, but you just, like, not mentally there.
yeah. I was in it. Um it was good. Like I'm happy that the release date was September 30th. So I was real worried that they're just gonna be like, it's gonna be live tonight. Like, you know how they do that with like the
Dude,
streams?
you always get worried about them, and it just, like, crashes the servers everywhere.
Yeah. So September 30th, they still seemed kind of like flaky on it. They were they literally held that to the very end. Like it was frustrating. They
Mm,
kept like bringing it up, and then he would like the game director would like talk about how, you know, how much time and the delays. I'm like, yeah. What when is it? And then they're like, let's look at the game
dragging
mechanic.
the carrot, huh?
Yeah. Um, to me, the delay to September 30th, rightly so. The way that they broke it down seems so logical. Like he showed basically in the some game mechanics that they just randomly made like last minute.
Mhm,
Like he's like one of our people made an inanimate object become like part of like a dialogue talking point, and then that dialogue talking point came. You could maybe have them as companion, and then they fully wrote them into the game like within like a week. And like he's like, so when you take that into the fact that that creativity is still happening, that's why we're getting delayed, and that's why we can't really give you guys what we want because
their scope's creeping, man.
yeah, so basically that was what they said, scope creep. Like that's why it's being delayed and why they're kind of flaky on the dates, which totally makes sense to me. It looks like they're putting in so much quality, so much love into like every aspect of this game. Larian Studios always going for the all the dialogue is spoken and voice acted.
Mhm.
No problems here. Like keep doing that. Like if you need to take more time, do it because that's what makes their games so special for their RPG elements. Then he started breaking down the metrics of like what you're gonna get in early access because it's not the full game, which I was a little disappointed, but I understand.
That's a nail in the coffin, but only halfway, like, you can still push out with, like, just, like, halfway nailed in there.
So you get Act One. He says it's roughly 20 plus hours of content, like
Okay.
just if you do one character, probably. So you could probably do different races, different classes, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but he said, they compared the metrics to when they did early access for Divinity Original Sin 2. And I like that metric because that makes you kind of have a full
Did
scope
you
of what
play
it
it
is.
in early access for Divinity?
No, but you can put your head there. It's just Fort Joy, right? When we're in Fort Joy, that first part, that was
Yeah,
what
but
early access was.
I guess what my follow-up question was is, like, how long after the early access release did the full game come out?
I want to say it was This is not to put my foot in my mouth, but
You don't have to give exact was it like a
I
few
wanna say
months
it's, like,
or
6 months maybe,
okay,
like, it wasn't, like, a full year or something, but it
okay.
was quite a while. Um, but it was, like, something like the amount of dialogue lines, so it was, like, 40,000 or something, and then now this early access has 80,000, and then in Divinity, there was 50 possible combat, scenarios. This one, we have 85 or whatever. So those, like, one-to-ones, like, it made you think, "Oh, wow, this is a bit bigger, it's a bit beefier, it makes you feel a little more comfortable." And then they showed the data that they collect, right? That helps them, and it was it looked like an infrared map of Fort Joy, and it was where everyone died. They track that.
Okay.
So that way they can say if things are too hard in certain areas or they're not getting to certain areas that they want you to be, they can tweak it and everything. So I thought that was really cool to be a
That is
part of
cool.
that. So I really enjoyed that part of the stream, but it started getting a little repetitive that they were kind of, it's four guys talking, and they kind of just kept going in circles a little bit.
Mhm.
And a lot of the information I already kind of knew about their game system and game mechanics. So I didn't really see anything new um within like gameplay other than like maybe cool creatures or just kind of re-spark a little bit of hype towards getting deep down into an RPG like that.
Yeah.
Um Another thing, they did like community involvement kind of. And this is where I was a little frustrated because I'm like, it was a bit of a stretch. Like we didn't really like it was you got to decide on one dialogue point and like see how the conversation goes.
Oh, wait,
And
like,
you
through the gameplay they were showing?
yeah, and then they'd be like, "Okay, we'll see how it turns out here in a bit." And then they go back to the panel, like away from the gameplay and you're like,
That's weird.
okay,
That
like
kinda
make them
takes
both.
out from the immersion.
It kind of does. And then you go back to it and then he hits the dialogue point that everyone voted for and then they show a little bit and then they go back to the panel. So it just felt kind of scraped together. Like in my mind, it felt like they weren't expecting that they were gonna have to do another stream to say when the release date was,
Mhm.
and it just didn't feel planned. It didn't feel scripted. You know, all that. It just felt kind of pieced together. But granted, still love the game. Still hyped for the game. It looks great. Like they clearly are putting in D&D into video game format at the highest quality level.
So,
Um,
I was gonna ask, like, you sound like you're overall still pretty pumped for it, and you had a good experience even though they dragged it on. But I wanted to ask, like, obviously chat's going at the same time. So, like, what was chat's reaction when their delayed reason was because of scope creep? Were they like, "Oh, okay, cool, we're getting more," or they like, "Yo, chill out on the extra shit and just give us the game?" Because I feel like it could have gone both ways.
Chad was I mean, it was kinda mixed, like,
That's
my thing is
kind of
with
expected, I
this
guess.
this game, there's so much, like, anticipation for it and wanting it to be amazing that there's really, like, you gotta do what you gotta do,
Mhm.
and I think that they showed that example of, like, some of the scope creep actually coming to life, got people excited, and then once they layered that with the metrics of how big the early access they're gonna get, I think that kinda quickly went away. I will say I'm sick and tired of seeing the feedback that, "Oh, Divinity 3." First of all, I can see why you would think that, but this is literally like the D&D 5th edition in a video game format. Granted, Divinity Original Sin 2, yeah, it kinda looks similar and they kinda have some mechanics.
I wouldn't say kind of like that I'm not gonna defend that argument, but like when I saw it, I was like straight up, I thought it was Divinity DLC. Like they have the
Right.
same layout, but it's a new story in the D&D 5 and all that. So like it's not the same.
It's just like but my thing is if they're always like, "Well, I'm a big fan of like Divinity 2, but this just kinda feels like a 3rd game," like, then you should be excited still. If you really like the 2nd game, well, then you should be pumped for this. Like, I don't understand why that's negative.
True.
When it's such a well-received game to be, like, compared to as a sequel of it, why would that be a bad thing?
Yeah.
That's, like, my one complaint with chat that I saw. But, another thing that's interesting about these, like, stream events to release information, right? There's a feeling that they got a live stream all these announcements and all these gameplay reveals.
Mhm.
And in my mind, I feel like we're kind of taking advantage of those elements of live streaming just a little bit. I think something like this is a little bit smaller. I think you can either heavily script or pre-record and it would be okay and release it to the public. I don't think you're going to lose out on too much community feedback. I think it's going to be there. Community interaction, if you're really that worried about it, you can take notes from Paradox's company. They have a Twitch account. They do a live stream every other week or so on their development process of the game and show small improvements to the games that are coming out. And then that's through a certified platform that doesn't it's not rickety. You know what I mean? Whereas when you're on YouTube Live or you're using Zoom, or you can see that guys he's literally using Zoom because you see like the blurred background or whatever, and you're just like, then you're gonna cause problems because then there's points where the dude was literally like couldn't hear him at all,
Yeah.
and it's just like it just looks unprofessional. And if it's a big announcement like a release date, I feel like if I was the company, I'd be like, nah, I want our message to be really clear. I want it to be good production quality. We can afford to give this guy a camera in his house and record him.
Yeah, because that's not that big of a deal. Like, or like worst case, like he puts his iPhone on a dang tripod and then like just takes something like that because like that's gonna look better than some of the webcams that you'll see. But I get what you
Because
mean.
I think that it's allowing for laziness in these type of releases, which I might get backlash for, maybe people really like, but in my opinion, I would rather not have a laggy stream, or when I'm really excited for something, waiting for something, and then the guy that's giving me a speech literally loses audio for a minute. I would rather not lose out on that information. Also, if you want to know what it's like working in IT and having an audio or a video conference call, watch those streams. And when they interrupt each other and then there's silence for like 2 minutes, and then it's like, no, no, you go. No, you go. No, oh, that's what it's like. And you shouldn't have to see that on something like this. Like, you should have a full script, talking points. Like, obviously, there's going to be times where maybe people interrupt, or, I mean, it happens with me and you, and we have talking points and everything. But something like this, maybe write a script. Maybe have planned, talking points, which they probably did, but there was a couple of times where it just felt like, did you guys even like rehearse or plan this out a little bit? I don't know.
Here's where I'm at with that because like I feel like you talked about the live stream and then you talked about like the complete polar opposite of recording everything, and I feel like people hate both. Like I've seen people like Ubisoft, why'd you pre-record it? Like what are we even here for? Like people in chat are just like roasting like nobody's seeing it kind
Yeah.
of deal. But then like you'll get the ones like you're talking where it's like they're kind of lazy with it. They didn't really plan anything. They're just kind of there. And like you told me about the paradox thing, and I do think it's pretty cool how they give like little updates, and I agree with that. But given the whole COVID thing, it is interesting that like we're just seeing a lot of like recorded video calls from Zoom or whatever, and there are the hiccups that way. And your point about having sending them due to camera or just having them pre-record that, yeah, that could work. But I feel like what they should do is find this middle ground where like they have a timeline. Like, all right, we have like straight up 5 minutes to talk about this. Like, we can't go over because
Yeah.
then they get the scope creep of the actual reveal. So, like, you had to wait 2 hours or more, or an hour and a half, whatever, to just get the release date. And like, they might have been dancing around. And then, like, I mean, Sony, they said that when they did theirs, like, to be honest, I don't know really remember if all of it was live streamed or if it was pre-recorded, but because they did say that they locked their stuff at 1080p 30, I think it was for the stream's value. So like I think the way they did it was decent, where like they probably had someone come on from their studio or whatever to talk live, but then they had like all the gameplays pre-recorded. So there needs to be some sort of like hybrid, I think, where like they'll come on, they'll introduce themselves like they do at a normal like E3 panel or Gamescom panel, and then they show either pre-recorded gameplay, like a trailer or something like that, and then maybe they have someone come out and play it. Like they need to like emulate what they used to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I feel like we've kind of lost sight of how the shows used to run. And then like we just sort of like, oh, like we're just streaming now. Like
Yeah.
like we'll just
We can get
play
away
and
with it.
talk.
Yeah.
So I feel like they just need to get back to like, okay, we just need to emulate how it used to be at like other game events.
And we don't need 4 people on a panel, dude,
That
like,
is too much.
too
Yes.
many people on a live stream.
For video calls at least, because I've seen like multiple people like that go on stage at E3, but again, they have like a loose script, you know? Like you don't want it to be so forced where people are just like, "Oh, cringe." Like you always see that on the chat cuz like it sounds so forced, but it's just kind of like you got to have some idea of like where you want to go, you know?
Yeah.
It is just I agree. It is a little lazy sometimes what we have been seeing. But like for these major company reveals, because they do have the budget to do all the production value, like they're doing it well. But like I guess for the smaller ones, like they gotta find a way to like not just record a Zoom call and
Yeah.
stream the game. So interesting.
But I'm gonna buy it.
Yeah, I mean you've been sold. Like I don't think there's anything they could have told you here that would have like you already knew. Like you weren't gonna just be like, okay, now I'm sold.
No, like, yeah, this game was already
It was
if I
like
could
on the
pre-order it,
way.
I would pre-order it.
Yeah, you already like bought it throughout the key. You know what I mean? Like just locked that in.
Yeah, 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 yep.
So a little side note, which I don't think anybody saw coming. All of a sudden, Sucker Punch from the creators of Ghost of Tsushima, they're just like, hey, you know how we just released a fire ass game? Like it's killing it. Like we're doing well, but we got more. Like you weren't expecting this. All of a sudden, they start releasing multiplayer co-op gameplay. Whose man's? Like, where did this come from? Before, like, I wanted to judge it or be kind of like, what is this? Is this going to be one of those like unnecessary multiplayer
It
elements
was
that
one of
they
those Keegan buys a PS4 randomly in August.
well, so that's what it ended up being. But I'm saying I was worried it was going to be like how like all right, BioShock 2 had multiplayer. Why? That game didn't need it. And then
Yeah,
like or I think it was BioShock 1. Either way, one of them did. And then like games like The Last of Us, the first game had it and some people liked it. I was just kind of like this is not why I'm here. And the second one's actually going to get multiplayer as well, which is weird coming later. Not too excited. Anyway, this game literally is like we're going to take you with four legends in the Japanese like samurai mythology and then you're gonna fight like in the game you fight grounded normal people like mongols in this you're gonna be fighting like um I don't know supernatural things like you might see like Japanese demons or like other spirits or just like samurais that can like bend lightning and things and it's like basically some of the gameplay kind of looked like Destiny elements, like their kind of environmental design and character design, but then like we're Japanese samurai cooperative. And I'm just kind of like, wow, like y'all didn't need to do this, but I love it.
I didn't need this to happen. Like, I really didn't, and I already really wanted to play this game, and this is just like the chair. Like, they're like, "What else could we lure Keegan in with?" And they're like, "What about co-op?" No, in.
And I was like, I was toying with you a little bit because I was like, hey Keegan, I got some news. Like you're definitely gonna cry a little bit inside when I send you this. And you're like, what is it? And I was like, drop, you're buying a PS4. And you're like, what? You couldn't contain yourself.
I just can't. Like, it just is not logical to buy a PS4 right now. But I've made worse financial decisions in my life, so
But here's some bonus thing that it could go this way. I'm hopeful. This said it had a fall release date. It's unconfirmed. Let's say the thing comes out in like October or maybe even like late September. you're gonna be playing Baldur's Gate, you're gonna be busy. That'll tide you over until the launch of the PS5, and then you and I can play this together on PS5.
False.
What do you
Cyberpunk.
but, like, I'm talking about, later on. So, like, you're I mean, I did kinda low key forget about Cyberpunk for a second, but I'm saying that you're gonna be tided over until it's ready to be played. This you're only gonna have to, like, resist normal willpower now because you couldn't even play this now. But by the time this comes out, you're gonna be busy anyway, and then when you're free, you and I can hop on it.
Okay, I mean, Avengers is gonna scratch, my itch for video games and buying something, and then once that fades away, you know, Baldur's Gate 3's got my back. That'll carry me on for a while. Um, and then hopefully Empire of Sin gets a release date, and then Cyberpunk. And if there's a lull, I mean, I got multiplayer games to play, so I'm not too worried. Honestly, the biggest thing that's really my biggest struggle right now is I just want to play an RPG so bad. I want to boot up Divinity so bad, just because once Baldur's Gate 3 news comes out, I all I can think about is like what I would want to set up. I want to create this character, and I go through it with these decisions. That's all my brain's going towards. So I need to basically tonight. I have to play Star Wars just to kind of palate cleanse, get back on the focus.
Yeah, and I mean, we could jump back into Divinity, but again, we got Halo just like scratching on our necks,
Just
like, "Yo,
wait.
what are you doing breathing down it?" And I still have to beat Ghost of Tsushima, but I don't know. It'll happen. I got things I gotta do.
We got work to do. That's the
Yeah.
most adult-like way to be put our podcast. Yeah, I got things to do.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how it goes. This Ghost of Tsushima was a nice surprise. I will try to be quiet about it when I play it though, so you don't, you know, get all like, "No, I want it."
Yeah, and I just sent you a Snapchat of a PS4 I bought.
Nah, you can't keep joking like that because it's gonna
Another
happen.
another Animal Crossing. The another surprise that we had was Suicide Squad. That's kind of older. Early August, the tweet came out from Rocksteady. Um, so DC Comics is having a fan event, fandom, August 22nd, which we've been waiting for Warner Brothers Montreal to make a release on what game they've been teasing. And then Rocksteady tweeted out a Suicide Squad poster with looks to be Bizarro. Everyone thinks it's Superman, but I don't think so. I think it's Bizarro, which is one of his villains. Um, so I think they're gonna have some sort of release at DC fandom. So it's gonna
Is
be
this a Suicide Squad movie or a game?
that's a video game.
Dang.
It's from Rocksteady.
Okay. I guess when you
Um,
said Rocksteady, I like all these companies blend together, so I just kind
yeah.
of like, it's a movie.
Which I mean, it's really exciting. In my opinion, I don't really want to give too much into it because I don't have all I
Well,
have
they
is a movie.
haven't even said much yet.
They haven't really said much. And I just kind of want to wait. I don't want to get too much like context before I even see the release. Once I see the release this weekend at DC Fandom, which is a 24-hour fan event, which is pretty crazy, of just DC Comics, what's to come.
Mhm.
Um,
You gonna stay up for all 24 hours?
but maybe.
No.
But my thing that kind of made me mad is I kind of saw some like just some commentary people and other people commenting on this news and like what to expect, and they were kind of bashing on it a little bit, just because they want Batman video game announcement reveals rather than this.
Mhm.
I don't really understand why people are bashing it because they haven't even seen the reveal, so they don't even know what the full scope of it is. And to
Oh,
me,
man.
I think the reason people kind of bash it is because of the Suicide Squad movie. So
I was gonna say,
that's like their only context of like that and Birds of Prey, the Harley Quinn movie. Like that's the only taste in their mouth from this.
mhm.
It can be such a good potential. Like it might be a really good storyline. It might be a really cool gameplay. Like I just don't want to bash it yet. Like, and here's my thing. I will say one thing. There are a lot of people are like saying, "Would you rather have this or a new Batman game?" And I haven't seen anything stating that there isn't a new Batman game. So
They could do both.
yeah, I don't know.
Maybe they'll do Suicide Squad, but Batman is a Xbox exclusive. Oh man. But dude, this thing that you're talking about with the Twitter prejudice already, and it's not even they've seen anything. Like this is like setting a new record when I was talking about I guess it's not a record because they do this kind of thing in other things, but we were talking about Outriders and how they were just like completely bashing on it when they just like they're seeing the gameplay like for the first time and it's like not the finished product. And then like now they just announced the concept of a game and they're just like, nah, get it out of here. Like, what is this?
The funniest one's like, we didn't ask for this. Like, dude, you think that they just take a poll, be like, hey, what do you guys want us to develop next?
Like,
But
yeah,
like,
all the time when they release new IPs, like nobody asked for that stuff. Like that's all new creative stuff that they've made. Like, I don't know. People are just like, I don't
I
know.
will argue there are plenty. I will say the one argument is let's get like a different comic series developed or in the video game atmosphere or within the cinematic universe. I will agree with that.
Yeah.
That there is plenty of storylines, there's plenty of other heroes that can be better in the limelight. That is a solid argument, but to me, Suicide Squad hasn't been really redeemed very well. So, like, maybe this will be a great rendition of Suicide Squad. Who knows?
Hopefully, because like it might salvage the like lack of hope people have in it just because of the one movie that wasn't that well received. And it's kind of unfortunate that like that's now like synonymous with Suicide Squad. Like people hear
Yeah.
it and they're just kind of like, nah, I don't like it.
Yep. Pretty much. And it's a really good comic series.
I bet it is. But like again, I've told you before, like diving into comics, like at this point, I don't even know where to begin because like you're gonna be like, okay, it's a good comic series, so I gotta go find where it was good for you. But like they also make new stuff, and I'm just kind of like, I don't even got time for that, man. I
There's
don't read a lot. Let's say that I
there's
read articles. I don't really read a lot for enjoyment.
DC did a really good thing with New 52 where they released series for revamps for all of like the heroes that they did a series catalog for. You know what I can do? I'm just gonna ship you some, and you're gonna read them.
Am I?
I have a whole on backlog repository of just comic books, bro. I'll just send them to you, and you can just read along and enjoy, and then get hooked on them.
All right, we'll see. We'll see about that because like I said, I don't even have time to finish these games I'm playing. If I start reading comics, I ain't gonna do anything.
That's a valid point. I still buy them,
I know. You find the time, but
yeah.
all right. Well, hopefully that game's decent, and hopefully this episode was too.
If it wasn't though, give us some feedback.
Yeah. If you like the
Still like
podcast,
it. Don't dislike it. Just like it for us.
exactly.
But yeah,
I haven't seen anybody do that yet. I
I
don't
mean
know
either.
how harmful that would be to our algorithm because we're so
I
small.
don't, I don't know, but maybe just leave some feedback and then subscribe to us and hit that notification bell to see if we improved next week.
Nice. But it's ironic because next week is about to happen in about 30 seconds because of reasons you'll find out next week. All
uh,
right, guys, we'll catch you in the next one.
later.